per hour.
Okay, so we definitely have those options here. Nannies, childcares. Last childcare Sierra and I checked out years ago when we first came here, man, was like, so you remember they had the bowling alley inside, the PlayStation inside.
Oh, okay, you talking about the last one.
Everything that a child would ever want was in that joint. And they talked to us like as if it was about to be a beautiful experience and everything. We sat up there, we got to the table, started running numbers and all. It was like, yo, who rent we paying?
Exactly.
Because goddamn. What's good, y'all? It's the Demouchet REACT, and we're back with another video. Who we got today, Steve?
Today we're back with another American reaction. Super excited about this video. If you're new to us and we're new to you, make sure you scroll down,
hit that subscribe button,
and turn on the post notification bell
because we're on the road to 200K.
And we cannot get there without you guys, alright? Join the family. Without further ado, let's get into the video.
Let's hear it.
If you're moving to Australia and you're planning to work full-time here, but at the same time you have a young family, young children, you're probably wondering, what am I going to do with my kids when I'm working? And I know that many of you have been asking me to make a video about this, so let's get started. If you're a working parent of very young kids, it's likely that you'll have to send your kids to childcare or kindergarten. Childcare refers to private or community-based centers where people usually take their kids to be looked after. And this is usually for kids aged over 6 weeks. And these childcare centers, you're going to find them around your suburb, in your area. Something that you should know is that the cost of childcare can range from 70 Australian dollars to 185 Australian dollars per day. Now, another option to community-based or private childcare centers is to access this type of services, but in your own home. So, for example, you can hire a nanny or a specific certified professional to come to your home and look after your kids. These type of services are called family daycare and in-home care. And the cost of these services can range from 15 Australian dollars per hour or 35 Australian dollars per hour.
Okay, so we definitely have those options here. Nannies, childcares. Last childcare Sierra and I checked out years ago when we first came here, man, was like, so you remember they had the bowling alley inside, the PlayStation inside.
Oh, okay, you talking about the last one.
Everything that a child would ever want was in that joint. And they talked to us like as if it was about to be a beautiful experience and everything. We sat up there, we got to the table, started running numbers and all. It was like, yo, who rent we paying?
Exactly.
Because goddamn,
it was high.
It was expensive. But we wanted the best for our children, understand? And as well with the nanny as well too. They have a lot of people who can't afford having nannies for their children, which I recommend is a good thing to have as well, because your child is home with you. You don't have to worry about having access to cameras and who's doing what to your child on what term of time of the day.
Especially if they're real young.
Especially if they're real young, 100%. So yeah, I love both options.
And in some instances, maybe a bit more. Now, in some cases, if you meet specific requirements, you may be able to access subsidies, that is government funding, to cover the cost of childcare services. And this type of financial support is called childcare subsidy. If your children are not that young and they are between 3 years old and 5 years old, you can send them to kindergarten or preschool programs. Kindergarten refers to a 2-year preschool program for children aged between 3 years old and 5 years old. And these preschool programs are usually before the kids start primary school. Disclaimer: kindergarten and preschool programs may be called differently depending on where you live, in which Australian state you live in, right? And this is a bit tricky because in New South Wales and the ACT, for example, they call kindergarten first year of primary school. The activities that precede primary school are called preschool programs, whereas in other states, like here in Victoria, those preschool activities before year 1, it's called kindergarten. I know that this is a bit confusing, but hopefully it kind of makes sense. Now, the usual weekly hours that children spend in kindergarten or preschool programs is around 15 hours per week, and they usually go to either a morning or an afternoon session. How much do you pay?
15, that's really not a lot.
That's like 3 hours a day.
Yeah.
Give or take, like 3 hours a day for you guys.
Yeah. So if y'all are working, How does...
Mind you,
What's y'all schedule?
the nanny is like $35 an hour.
Yeah. Child, we're going to do that nanny.
Yeah, the nanny sound like it's a more benefit. I mean, let us know how you guys
Like
like
for
your
working
situations. Because if
parents.
you're like a real hardworking parent and you got to be back and forth to the job, like what is it with the situation that would be more comfortable with?
Right, because I remember when we had our children like in a Mother's Day Out program,
Mm-hmm.
it was about 6 hours a day, and that wasn't enough.
Right.
You know, so 3 hours.
And now we
Okay.
had 3 babies, and you know what I'm saying. So
Child.
imagine a household who has 4,
Or
and
more.
they're working parents. You know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So it's.
Y'all gotta let us know. Fill us in on that.
Mm-hmm.
For these services will vary according to the kindergarten itself, because these are private institutions and they set their fees themselves. If you're not able to afford kindergarten services or preschool services, you may be able to access financial support provided by the government in the form of subsidies to be able to manage these costs. And the best way to find a kindergarten is to contact your local council or just go to their website.
Screenshot if y'all need
Free
it.
kindergarten.
It's not bad.
Now let's talk about school education, primary and secondary school here in Australia. Attending primary and secondary school here in Australia is compulsory for kids aged between 6 years old and 16 years old. And that means that school is compulsory between year 1 and year 9 or 10. And let me briefly explain how it works. Primary school in Australia runs for 7 to 8 years and starts from year 1 or prep or kindergarten in some states and finishes in year 6 or year 7. Secondary school in Australia runs for 3 to 4 years. And depending on where you live, again, it may go from year 7 to year 10 or year 8 to year 10. Now, after secondary school, there's something called senior secondary school. And this runs for 2 years, year 11 and year 12. And of course, year 12 is the last year of secondary school. Another thing that perhaps you might want to know is that the school year in Australia usually starts in late January, early February, and it runs all year until mid-December. And
y'all
kids
made
get
it
an
simple.
average of 10
I mean, at
to...
the same time, they made it simple. It's like the beginning of the school year, or after New Year's, however that may works. Boom, throughout the whole year, you're going to school. I was just like right there in the middle of the years, you know.
Right. Ours start from August to May.
And we just slap over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so y'all are always in school.
A lot.
Always. That's why I understand now it says till 16. Because usually we graduate here around 17 to 18, depending on, your birthday.
Yeah.
12 weeks or even 14 weeks in some instances of school holidays per year. But again, these numbers will vary according to where you live. Okay, let's talk about costs. Yay! How much do schools cost in Australia? Is Australian education free? The answer is yes and no. This is why. Primary and secondary education in Australia is free if your kids go to public or state government schools, because these type of institutions are publicly funded. Having said that, you do need to take into account that you may have to pay for a small annual fee, which is usually around 400 Australian dollars per year, and you'll have to pay for your kids' school uniforms, textbooks, and stationery and other activities. But having said that, overall, public schools in Australia are free. Okay, another very important thing to know about...
I mean, when you think about it, school uniforms, all right? You got your school uniforms. You need a weekly outfit for that. You got your school shoes. Probably need about 3 pairs of those.
Yeah.
And you have your books. You have your fees. You have your small things you need to pay for, like PE, supplies, things like that. So it's kind of maybe
the same. When
the
you add all that in, it's like the same.
Right. Ooh, Lord.
Okay.
Okay.
Public schools in Australia is that enrollment in these schools is based on location, and this means that it's likely that your kids will have to go to the school that's located in their local area. Another type of school education here in Australia is Catholic schools. Catholic schools are run by...
Before we go to the Catholic schools, so we're pretty much seeing the same things.
Man, it's really identical.
But okay, so there are options here for you to go to another school that you're not zoned for. Do you all still give that option to the students?
Good
Or is
question.
it
Good
like
question.
you live here, you got to go to this school? Now, you can't just say, oh, we're going to go to this school that we're not zoned for. You have to fill out the information in order to go there. So y'all let us know.
Yeah, that's the one. That's the
The
question.
Roman Catholic Church, and as such, the values that underpin Catholic schools are driven by Christian principles. Now, the good thing about these type of schools is that they're not as expensive as private schools. Why? Because they're partly subsidized by government. So you usually have to pay a relatively small fee. Now, independent or private schools. As the name suggests, independent or private schools run separately from government. And this is the main reason why they are much more expensive than Catholic schools or public schools, right? But by charging more money at the same time, they're able to offer better facilities than other types of schools. You can expect to pay for private schooling around $20,000 per year. And again, remember that these numbers will vary depending on the state or area you live in as well. There are other types of private schools here in Australia, such as faith-based schools, selective schools, or Steiner schools, for example. So if you're interested in a particular teaching method, I highly recommend doing a bit of research on this, because there's a whole range of different school systems to choose from as well. Now, if you're interested in learning a bit more about the higher education system in Australia, and this involves universities and vocational education and training, I highly recommend watching these videos here and here. Or if you're interested in learning a bit more about what is it like to work.
All right, man.
That was some good information for people who
Not
want to move to
bad.
Australia.
Not bad. It's pretty much the same out here, you guys. So
Yeah.
we have kind of like similarities when it comes to a lot of things. I feel like in between the borderlines, like when it comes to the education and what they're probably getting involved in, it's a little different. But other than that, the system of it is like kind of the same.
Yeah, same systems.
Yeah.
So let us know if you are watching from a different location, if you have any differences, because over here it just seems like pretty much the same stuff. Yeah, so we hope you guys enjoyed this video with us. Like this video, subscribe, turn on the post notification bell. We have enabled our super thanks if you like to support the channel that way, as well as our reaction request form is in our description box below. We'll see you soon.
Peace.